In the traditional Theravadan map of awakening, there are 4 stages. The first stage is called stream entry or stream enterer. They're entering the stream of the Absolute. And each stage of the Theravada awakening must contain an experience of cessation. And it has to be a significant experience of cessation for that consciousness to move to the next stage of awakening. So, in other words, if someone were to experience a sustained experience of cessation, if this was the first time they had had it, the teacher would look at their experience, would look at their behavior, and if their behavior comported to stream entry, then they would often confirm that. One of the big shifts that happens with stream entry is a purification of personality view. A lot of people interpret that to mean that the personality goes away at stream entry, which is inaccurate. But the view of the personality being the primary or the exclusive view of that individual is what changes. The person has a sufficient landing in the Absolute that they know that that is a viable perspective and viewpoint. So it's like they have a larger viewpoint, or they have an additional viewpoint. Well, here's my viewpoint, and here's this universal viewpoint. So that's the main piece that happens in the first go-around with cessation. And each level, finishing my example, that person then could have subsequent contact experiences with cessation, but they might be smaller, shorter. They may not have done enough personal work to be ready for the next stage. So they may experience cessation 5 times, 20 times, unlimited number, but the conditions aren't right for that next step into the second stage of awakening, which is called once returner. And once returner means once one is a stream enterer in Theravada Buddhism, it's understood that there are 7 lifetimes, 7 rebirths at a maximum before that consciousness will be at the highest level, the 4th stage of awakening, which is called Arahant. And with the once returner, that's meaning that consciousness only needs to return one more time before the Arahant becomes available to that consciousness. Whether that's true or not, I can't say. I'm just saying that's the traditional teachings, that's the traditional understanding. And it doesn't mean to say that if somebody is a stream enterer that they can't develop in that lifetime for Arahant. Theravada Buddhism, particularly in Asia, views Arahant that there's at most 1 or 2 people per generation. So in my mind, that model then suggests that probably the really supreme practitioners and meditators, the Ajahn Chahs and those type of individuals, are probably the ones who would become the Arahants. So for most of us, it's considered out of reach in this lifetime. In the time of the Buddha, you can read the suttas, and it'll talk about the Buddha talking before, tens of thousands of people, and 10,000 people become Arahants, and 5,000 become, 3rd stage, and all the way down, which clearly doesn't happen today. So anyway, that's part of that model, but the cessation is really a key to that tradition, and cessation, unfortunately, isn't talked about very much. I've written about it and talked about it, because I think there needs to be more languaging, more understanding of it to bring it out of the sort of the shadows and the mystery into a kind of reality that this is a real possibility. And I have students that have experienced cessation, so it absolutely is the thing and does happen for folks. Cessation is called cessation because it's the ceasing of all mentality and all materiality. So anything that can go on in your mental world is shut off, is turned off. Anything you can associate with physicality, materiality, your sense of a body, your sense of the environment, any of that is shut off also. The closest experience we would have to cessation is dreamless sleep. So sleep when you sleep very, very deeply, but there's absolutely no dreaming at all. Because in cessation, there's no activity at all. Everything again ceases and stays turned off. Interestingly, cessation, we approach cessation by orienting deeply to particularly the peace and stillness of the absolute. The absence is a part of it, but we're not so much taking on the absence as much as we are the peace and stillness, and we're letting that just keep deepening and deepening and deepening. And at some point, we'll get close. We'll start approaching the potential for cessation. And the potential for cessation, let's say it's the deep end of the pool with peace and stillness. It's like the really both beautiful, delicate, and profound contact. I learned from this and doing the jhana practice that one aspect of Buddhism that's not talked about is whatever is the most subtle, whatever is the lightest, is also going to be the most potent. It's concentrated. So when we start making contact, it's going to be on the grosser side. So it's going to be more obvious. And as we get more refined, again, the intensity increases in relationship to our refinement. So the fact that peace and stillness in their deepest form can totally shut down everything about us is quite remarkable. And as we're approaching, as consciousness and awareness are approaching, deepening in peace and stillness, we can begin to feel our language center shutting off. Sometimes that happens to me when I'm doing guided meditations. For you all, I get too deep, and my languaging, I start losing words. So sometimes I'll be up here doing it, and I'll go silent for a while, and I can't find the language center, so I have no words to say. And so I have to kind of back off a little bit till I can get some language again. But what happens then is once the language shuts down, there's no sense of self at all. So there's no me, I'm doing this. There's just awareness and consciousness. And this awareness is a pure awareness. So it's an awareness that only knows what something is from contacting it. So the example I often give is like looking at a glass of water. We can look at all these things and talk about it. Well, it's clear, it's this, it's that. But we don't really know until we taste it. And this is what pure awareness is. It knows by direct contact, by feeling, by touching. It doesn't conceptualize. There's no concept available. So we have to know only from direct contact. And then as I define consciousness, it's awareness with a reflective capability. I'm tasting water, so the reflective capability kicks in. Oh, this reminds me of the time when I did this and I tasted water. After a hike, I was really thirsty and it was just amazing. Or I saw this lake that was the most clear, beautiful lake, I've ever seen. So we can then language about it, but with awareness, we can't. Again, we can't conceptualize. Consciousness can compare, but it's trying to compare to what we're experiencing. But as we get deeper in peace and stillness, consciousness will begin to quiet and turn off. And so we won't be able to make any more comparisons. It won't remind us of anything, or it won't feel familiar. It's all new and it's all direct awareness, direct contact. And so that awareness continues with peace and stillness. And we get to a point when that shuts off as well. And then it's just blackness. We have no memory, we have no activity going on at all, and until we awaken from it. And the awakening from it, and I'm not trying to use the word like Kensho awakeness. I'm meaning just wake up like from a sleep. When we come back to normal consciousness, there's a real refreshment, a refreshed quality to our consciousness. The next book I've finished the first draft of is a book I'm writing about awakeness itself, what awakeness looks like in different practices, what practices contribute to our realizing these qualities of awakeness. But cessation gives this just this aliveness. It's like waking up from the best sleep you've ever had. You just feel so satisfied and so complete and up, and it's really this wonderful experience. And it's only afterwards, by like if I'm in an interview with someone, hearing them describe how it was commencing, at what point they lose contact, and then what their first contact is, really reveals what happened and how deep it was. I had at the Utah retreat last year, there was a gentleman there who was in his late 70s who had always aspired for this kind of experience and was able to have a very sustained experience of cessation. So a life-altering experience. It was, and having that experience is equivalent to Kensho in terms of the effect on the individual consciousness. So this person was able to have this great experience that was completely life-changing. The rest of the retreat, whenever I saw them, they just had tears. They just had so much joy and gratitude to experience this, which is lovely. The reason that we don't all pop into cessation all the time is because we perceive that cessation is a shutting off, and cessation is the most extreme loss of control we'll ever experience. It's almost as though we all intuit where the entry door is, the way in we get. Deepening peace and stillness in particular is our way in. And the problem for all of us is we don't know where the exit door is. We don't know how to come out of cessation. So if we were to go in, there's a concern that what if I go in and I don't have a way out? I can't find a way out. What if I'm lost forever in cessation? And so interestingly, one of the things I've learned since I started teaching was humans have a greater fear of extinction than they have death. So the disappearing, going away forever, is more of a concern than the physical death of the body. So this will activate our survival instinct. That's what puts on the brakes as we get close to this is, well, I don't know. I can't control this. I'm really clear that I'm going to be, control is going to be taken away from me. That's the felt sense. And as we approach cessation, particularly as the languaging is shutting off, we can begin to feel what I call the tractor beam. And the felt sense is like something comes and just starts pulling on your awareness. You just start feeling like you're being pulled in this direction. It's very clear you're not doing it. Something else is. And so a lot of people will hit the brakes there. They'll have some resistance. And I call that area the cessation waiting room. Because people can get up there and they can hang out there for a while. And it's really beneficial because they're close enough to cessation to feel that the depth of the peace and stillness and the capacity to shut things down. So we can feel all that, yet we're not in there. We still have enough reflective capability where we're perceiving, we're experiencing, but part of it is we're getting accustomed to that energy and that that finality of cessation. We start getting more acclimated. Okay, well, I see. That doesn't feel that bad. And so then people can sometimes let go into cessation. And it seems that each of us has to say yes in some form or manner. Uh, it, it's pretty rare when when it happens spontaneously. Let me say it. It's rare when it's completely spontaneous. Almost everybody has a choice point at some place on the journey where they have to agree, they have to assent, and we can feel it inside. There's like this question mark. Are you in agreement or not? And some language, some feeling like that. And then we have to assent in order for this to happen. Like Kensho, most people's experience of cessation the first few times is quite brief. They would be in there a matter of moments typically. And it's helpful because then you can see that nothing bad happened. It was peaceful and beautiful, and it was enlivening afterwards. So we start getting more willing to do it. I've told the story that when I was on the retreat with the Sayadaw was the first time I encountered cessation. And I'd been doing 3-hour sits on that retreat. The Sayadaw required 3 hours in each jhana to pass the jhana and go on to the next. So I'd been sitting quite a lot, probably about 15 hours a day. And I'd sit all night. One night I'd do 2 6-hour sits. So I'd sit from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. and then do the rest of the day. And I decided in my youthful arrogance that yeah, I thought it'd be a good idea to set a 3-hour time resolve for cessation for my first time. So no, and I don't recommend that. No, because it was a very deep experience. But I was blown out for about 18 months. It took me that long to come back from that experience. I mean, I was so gone. So I tell people just if you're going to set a time resolve, 30 minutes, 45, 60 minutes max. That's enough, for a sustained experience in cessation. One doesn't need to do more unless you're really have that capacity. Because it does. It definitely changes things. And I don't really know how. Somehow being in the epicenter of the absolute, this at the source of the source, there's just ways it does things. It changes in some mysterious way that we can't know and unpack until we're returned and back in our life and to see how we relate to things. So anyway, that's sort of a big overview of cessation. Let me see if you have any questions about anything I've said. Just kind of trying to figure out who I was, how to do some things. I mean, it wasn't like I wasn't functional. I was working and I was married then and all that. So I kept everything up, but it was like I didn't know who I was at all. And I was just doing all this stuff. But it took a long time for the experience to finally land and become integrated. That was the integration period. Um, I remember afterwards too. Like one thing was I really slowed down, so even my walking became really slow. And I told the story. I went hiking at this familiar hiking spot I went to all the time, and the last part of it, it's an uphill incline. And I mean, this is true. There was a couple who were elderly. I was probably in my, I don't know, maybe mid 40s then, and there was this elderly couple, probably in their 80s, walking past me. They were passing me, and I swear the man was pulling an oxygen tank behind him. So they were passing me on this hill. That's how slow. And I had this great urge. I wanted to grab his belt and hold on and let them pull me up the hill because I had such little energy. And anyway, it took months just to get that back. So that was one thing, was just everything slowed down dramatically. Um, yeah, so that was definitely too much, more than I could process, for sure. Yeah. That's why I discourage it now. Don't have the hubris I did. Learn from my mistakes. All right, well, let's go ahead and practice some.